All right. Hey, I am Daniel Fansen, and in this video, I'll show you my recent track titled Caledonia, which is now out on In My Opinion. So throughout this video, I'll show you step by step how I created my song, a little bit of insight in how I layer my percussion elements. I'll start with the kick, obviously, and then going on with the percussions, finally ending up with the design elements like effects and such. And in between, I'll show you the bass lines, stabs, the sequences, my plugs, the melodic leads and pads, and of course the vocal elements. Alright, first let's hear how the track sounds like. Alright, so that is the main drop or the main theme of the track. The chords for this particular melody starts with a B flat minor, continuing on to an F sharp, then an E flat minor, and finally an F major. The melody goes like this. Alright, so let's start this video with the kicks. In this particular track I've only used one main kick as well as a additional ride to give a little bit of high end to the top. The kick is basically a pretty hard kick, which I've used a few plugins to make it a bit more deeper and a bit more bigger, if that's even a word. Let's hear how it initially sounds like. In solo, that is. So it's a pretty hard pumping kick, but once I add a Maserati drum enhancer, the Cashmere Essential Kick plugin, as well as a Simplon plugin for high and low automation, as well as limiter, it gets a little bit more deeper and a little bit more heavier. And throughout the track I also add a ride for some more crispness. Alright, now let's hear the claps. I've layered 3 different claps as well as a white noise kind of layer. So it starts with this clap loop. A heavily distorted clap loop, as well as this clap. Just a short, almost a snare-like clap. And moving on to this. Basically just a white noise hit. And to fill the gaps in between, I've added a little white noise hi-hat, if you want. So all layered together, we have something like this. And of course, with a kick group. Starting to get a nice rhythm. So let's move on to the other percussional elements. I have a hi-hat, or a couple of 3 hi-hats actually. The first one sounds like this. Very, very subtle, sharp hi-hats. And then also very subtle element from, I think I just moved from a loop. And thirdly, an open hi-hat. And also use this this layer which I've labeled reverse FX thingy. Like a spooky hi-hat, a reversed hi-hat. And then I have two shaker loops. The first one sounds like this. And the second one sounds like this. And finally, I have a couple of toms throughout the track, which sounds like this. And both are tuned to the root key. So if we summarize both the kicks, claps, as well as the percussion elements, we get this. As well as this. So that's basically all the percussional elements throughout the tracks. I also have this this drum fill. Which highlights the build throughout the tracks. I also have my signature snare layered. Alright, so let's move on to the bass line. This track is a pretty big room track in terms of bass lines. I have this huge sub which fills the speakers. Once I also add the kick, you hear something like this. Very big sound for the big arenas. I also have 5 different rolling bass lines. First of all, it's this. And there's this. And there's this. Also this. And finally, and then all these together, all the bass lines that is, together sounds like this. So all of these have basic saturation on them, as well as a Simplon plugin to control the automation of high and low frequencies. I also used an imager plugin on every track just to give each layer a different headroom. So let's hear how the track sounds like till now, with the bass lines, the percussion and the claps. And of course this changes, or the notes changes throughout the track. right. So, next group is the stabs, which is 4-layered synths as well as a old school stab sample. We'll start with the synths. Just a hard stab with lots of reverb or sidechain reverb. And finally, and altogether it sounds like this. Quite a signature element in this track, but it's also heavily sidechained with lots of reverb. And finally, the old school synth shot, which is basically this layer and a reverse effects of that, which is this layer with lots of reverb bounced to a new layer and then ran in reverse with some sidechain. Alright, let's go over to my my sequences or arpeggios or rhythmic elements if you want. First of all, it's this one, which I've called Fucked. Like an old school radio white noise stuttered layer. It's kind of cool. And there's also this layer. Just an offbeat bass with some additional delay echo. I also used a couple of sines, heavily distorted sine waves, and this rhythmic stab thingy with some saturation, and finally the acid elements. And all of them together sounds like this. Alright, and with the previous elements in my track, it sounds like this. In addition, I also have 3 layers in the break, which just makes it a little bit more exciting, which plays the same chords as the melody. Which again is automated throughout the break. Alright, let's move over to the plugs. I have, first of all, a couple of deci bit crushed, decimated layers, which later in the track gets pitched up higher. Alright, there's also these 2 layers which I have had some inspiration from an old track by Rank 1. If you listen to trance for more than a decade, I think you know which track I'm talking of. And during the build it plays a nice melody. Also, during the drop, I add one additional pluck, which sounds like this. Alright, let's hear how the track sounds till now with all the elements. I'll start with the build-up. Alright, let's move on to my melody. It consists of 6 individual layers, which are kind of similar but yet different enough to make it a little bit more interesting. First of all, it's this one. Secondly, this one. I think this one is the most prominent one throughout the track. The third one. The fourth one. And the fifth one. And finally the sixth one. And all together sounds like this. So let's hear how the drop sounds like with all these elements till now. Alright, let's move on to the pads. I have one group for the upper pads as well as one for the bass pads. First of all, there's this one from a concept library. Kind of spooky, ethereal pad sounds. And there's this lush, subtle pad, as well as this, which is classic trance. And finally these two, which are also very cliché in trance music. Also you'll have these sub pads. And all the pads together sounds like this. Finally, in addition, I also have this other pad during the drop, which plays a kind of different melody. Which I also used a tremolo plugin to make it very wide. Alright, let's hear how everything sounds like till now. Alright, and finally I can show the vocal layers throughout the track. During the build it starts with this stuttered vocal pad that sounds like this. and in the break it sounds like this. I've also automated the stutter, so it goes back to the bass vocal pad. And there's this contact plugin as well in the break. And there's this solo legato voice. And then the main solo vocal track. Which is the main theme throughout the track, that is. And everything also comes back together except the redope choir later in the track. But now with way more sidechain. Alright, and that's basically it. There's still a few layers, but that's... well, there's these tonal effect builds. That sounds like this. And there's this group with basic sweeps, and there's also this group with basic impacts throughout the track. And all in all, there's 98 layers throughout this track, which is about average in my projects. Alright, I think that's about it. We can listen to the track together from the break till the first drop. Keep in mind that this track, or this version of the track, is unmastered, and the version released is mastered by Orjan Nilsen himself. It's a kind of different sound, but it's still, the main themes remains the same. Alright, I'll leave you to it. thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little logic session. I'll leave in the description down below where to listen or download my track. And I hope you'll even consider a little subscription to this YouTube channel. Alright, thank you.